Hey guys, welcome to our next video. I'm from the Salesforce team. And this video is going to be about JavaScript reporting or Visualfoce reporting in Salesforce. So basically, as you have seen, Visualforce has its own ways to call your backend methods by the virtue of the controller. Usually those ways are either using an on-click attribute in a command button or an action attribute in a command button or using an action function or action support. But Salesforce introduced JavaScript remoting a while back as another way to call your backend methods from your JavaScript in your Visualforce page. So normally what this means is that JavaScript remoting has a few advantages over your standard action function action support ways of calling your Apex methods. So the first advantage is that JavaScript remoting does not use any view state. This really helps in minimizing the view state errors for any Visualforce pages. If you have a Visualforce page and you're getting a lot of errors because of view state, so you can replace some of your simple method calls with JavaScript remoting calls. That will reduce your view state. Now, JavaScript remoting also helps you to directly pass parameters to your Apex methods, unlike normal method calls where you have to use like an Apex param or other ways to pass parameters. JavaScript remoting's third advantage is that it is asynchronous, but you can use callback methods to handle everything properly. As to what a callback is, so since an asynchronous method runs whenever the resources are available and it does not wait for the execution to finish, a callback method is a JavaScript method which is run after your asynchronous process finishes. So obviously, in order for you to use remoting on your page, you must define an Apex method which supports JavaScript remoting. So you'll just need, again, before I start to implement this out, you can go to our website and under the Salesforce developer, you'll see a topic called JavaScript remoting in Visualforce, and you can use that for all the references and examples that I use. So let's go ahead and create a new class, which is going to store the method, the JavaScript remoting method, which is going to be called from our Visualforce page. And let us call this as remoting Apex. So basically we're going to be creating a method which will accept a name string as a parameter, and then it will just insert an account with that name as the name of the account. So the first rule of using remoting is that all remoting methods need to follow this @remote action annotation. So you need to use something like @remote action, and then if you are using @remote action annotation, your method should be static as well. So we are gonna just have it return the account instance back, and we're gonna name it save account. And this is gonna receive one parameter called name. Now I'm gonna define a new account instance inside of it. New account like this. A.name will be the parameter that we receive, and then we're gonna be inserting this account. And once it is inserted, we're gonna be returning this account. So as far as the actual Apex method definition goes, this is all you need to do. Oh, I think I forgot to add static in here, since that is why it is not allowing me to save the method. And I misspelled account. So now I should be able to save this out. Yep. Now, once you have declared any method like this, I'm going to show you how do you call it from a Visualforce page. So for this, we're going to be creating a new simple Visualforce page. and we're gonna call it remoting example. Okay, so once you have set up your page, obviously you need to associate this page with this Apex class as its controller. I'm gonna do that. And obviously, since JavaScript promoting works off your JavaScript, you need to have a script tag in your page like this to house all the JavaScript that you're gonna write. But now, if you look at this example right here, or typically this is what our output looks like. So what we're essentially doing is we're just defining some normal HTML fields like this. There is one input field that you're going to define with an ID, and then the second thing is going to be a button that you're going to define just right below it, like this. And I'm gonna hide the header and the sidebar as well, like this. Let me just preview this. So as you can see, it's a really simple UI, and this is purely HTML based. There is no Visualforce components or tags being used here. So now, as you can see, this is my input field and this is my button. On the click of this button, I'm calling this function called create account, but there is no function defined here yet. So this is how you usually call JavaScript methods from an on-click attribute. So what I'm going to do is inside my script, I'm going to define one function called create account like this. And now if you look at the example that we are using on the website, the first thing you notice is this line called visualforce.remoting.timeout equal to this value. So this value actually is in milliseconds. This represents 120 seconds. So since these are asynchronous, there is a certain limit on how much your Visualforce is going to wait for a response. And by default, that value is not 120 seconds, but it is 20 seconds instead. But if you use the syntax visualforce.remoting.timeout equal to this, so you expand that value to 120 seconds, and your function will be able to wait up to 120 seconds to receive an output back from the remoting method. So generally a good practice to do it unless you're pretty confident that your method is not going to take too much time to return a response. So after you do this, the next thing you'll see is a really simple JavaScript trick that we're doing here inside the function, that is that document.getElement by ID. This is a function used in JavaScript which is being used here to read the value entered in this input field, get that value in your JavaScript. So let's say, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an alert in here with this name, right? So how this works is this does document.getElement by ID and input ID. There it is why you are able to get this input value, and then it does this dot value at the end, and this returns me the value which is stored inside that input field. So if I go back here and refresh this page and I enter any value here like this, and I save this, so you are able to see we're getting that value in our JavaScript. Now all this part is just like basic JavaScript, and now is where we're actually gonna call our remoting method. And the way you do that is like this. So the syntax to doing that is visualforce.remoting.manager.invoke action. And now in here, instead of using the page controller here, I need to specify the actual class name, which is remoting apex. And then I need to specify the actual method name, which is save account. After I do this, The second thing here being passed is the actual parameter which we are supposed to pass in our method. So since now we are only passing one parameter here called name, so you can pass it like this. If we had maybe like two parameters here, like this, we could just have passed them by comma separating them easily. So we would have done something like this, and this would have passed like two parameters to my remoting method. But for now, we're just passing a single method, right? So, and this handle result is actually what is referred to as our callback function. So as you can see right now, the handle result is not defined anywhere, but I can define it as a separate function down below like this. And you can see this is what we have done here. And this callback function will receive two parameters by default, which are the result and the event. Like this. So now if I like print out the result dot id, so this result will actually contain whatever is being returned from my remote action, which is this account. So I'm going to do account dot id, and this is going to print me the id of the newly inserted account. Since we have set up everything now, we are fetching the value from the input field, and this is how we are calling our apex method. This is our callback, which is called once this is completed in the backend. Now I go back here, refresh it, and I enter sfdc champs, and I save this. You see I am able to I'm getting an ID in here. Now if I go to my org and open this ID up, so you are able to see that the account was successfully created in our backend. So this is how you can call your remoting. And again, really good way to go if you want your page to work mostly with JavaScript and you want to avoid all the hassles with useState. So that was it for this video, guys. I hope this was a good session to you guys, and see you guys in the next video.